Hey, everybody. So honored to be continuing to do this podcast. We're going into our third year now. And as you've noticed lately, I've been doing a lot of solo episodes. That is because I've been a little bit more discerning about who I bring on this show. Um, Here today, I've got my friend Danniel Davis. He is the founder of Rescue Ready. He's going to have plenty of time to talk about that. He is a husband, a father, a follower of Jesus Christ, a 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, a firefighter and fire chaplain, and so much more. Danniel, I'm geeking so much about having you on the show right now, man. Welcome, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me on, brother. That was a crazy introduction, but yeah. So I'll start with my story, and we'll kind of go from there if
Yes,
you don't
sir.
mind, brother.
Absolutely,
That
man.
was a lot to introduce. There's a lot of different elements to that. Number one, I'm a father. I'm a father of five beautiful children. Two of my kids have special needs. My daughter has what they call single ventricle dextrocardia, and so basically what that is her heart is flipped like a mirror and it's backwards, and she only has one pumping chamber. So most healthy humans have four pumping chambers. Lily only has one. She's 7 years old. Um, she was given 1% chance to survive the first 2 weeks of life. They gave us an option to do a late term abortion, and me being a Christian, I was still early in my walk with Christ at that time, but me and my wife looked at each other, and that wasn't an option, right? So they did some trying to convince us to do it, but the Lord just wouldn't let us do it. And so that's where I started my walk with Christ, and it's kind of where my story begins as well. Um, did a lot of growing up in that time. I was typical angry with God, couldn't figure it out, a lot of doubt, and sorry, so it's rough even talking about it today, 7 years later. Um,
Yeah.
So we went through that journey. She had four open heart surgeries, one non-open heart surgery. So she had five heart surgeries altogether. Um, she's still terminally ill, classified as terminally ill. I don't like to look at it that way. Um, so that was my first road with really growing up as a father, right? I do have a 14-year-old boy, but he was healthy and things were really easy. And then I kind of hit the ground with Lily and spent a lot of time at Children's, and we went through that whole growing process. And I swore I'd never have kids again. And here I am with five of them because the good Lord put it in my heart that I needed to have more. And we had one more son, Legend, after Lily. So he's 4 years old. And then a short year later, we have the twins. So I have a 4 year old and I have twin 3 year olds. And
Uh,
so the twins have a syndrome called twin to twin transfusion. So it's when identical twins don't share the embryonic fluid equally. So one twin takes all the embryonic fluid, the other one receives it. And it's pretty common. It can be dangerous for twins. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon when we figured out they had the syndrome. I just got off work, and because I was working construction at the time, and they're like, "Hey, you guys got to be in Denver by noon tomorrow, or you're going to lose both these babies." So I didn't know what to do. I loaded up my stuff and I went to my pastor's house, and I just broke down in tears. And I asked my pastor, Bob Flack, I said, "How could God be doing this to me again? How could I be living through this trauma again? I'm not strong enough. He needs to take this from me." And in few short hours, he linked up with a church, Southside Bible Church in Denver, Colorado. And we drove throughout the night to get there. A family received us, took us in. The surgery went great with my wife. Everything was beautiful. They did a fetal surgery where they ligated the placenta. So each twin was then growing separately, and they were really healthy. So another roadblock happened after they were born. They were born at Truman Hospital, healthy little twins. And then a lot of people have heard of RSV, and they contracted RSV right after birth at the hospital. My twin Gabriel was fine. He handled it well. Danniel was not fine. So Danniel got really, really sick and ended up, we had to life flight him. And I tell that story to tell this because this is where I really matured as a firefighter. Um, which kind of led me into the fire chaplain thing and everything. Because when you hear your own address come across the radio and it's one of your children, it's probably the most heartbreaking thing you've ever had, that I've ever personally have ever had to deal with. And you really have to separate yourself, because just because you're the father, you're also there to save them. And it's really hard to determine to separate that. And so I was at work, and we had to, they called 911, and I heard my address come across the radio, and I'm like, oh no, God knew they had been sick. And we ended up having to life flight Danniel, and he spent a year in the hospital. They had 4 failed intubation attempts, so they had to intubate him because he just couldn't keep up. With the RSV was just dragging him down, and they had 4 failed intubation attempts, and it scarred his airway so bad that he has so much scar tissue in there, he needed a trach placed. And that was a whole journey in itself. But then that's when I really became close with God, because Lily broke me. I always tell everybody, Lily broke me and Danniel built me, because God prepared me for that situation through my daughter. So I didn't realize it at the time, but he was building me up for the next battle I was going to face. And it really brought me close to God. And so, yeah. And I really started becoming really compassionate for parents that have to go through traumatic experiences. And why I became a fire chaplain. Sorry, there's a lot of story to go into here, but
you're doing great, brother.
I started seeing that, and I started noticing a missing connection. And how could I help? What could I do to help the person that's going through that? And sometimes it's just a kind word. And sometimes, people need a little extra support. And I was one of those people that needed a little extra support. I didn't show it on the outside, but I was dying in the inside, right? And Jiu-Jitsu helped me a lot with that. Because when you touch those mats, as you know, brother, things seem to disappear for a little while. All the struggles and
protecting your neck becomes your first priority, for sure.
Right. Survival is number one, right? And
that's it, man. Yeah.
I just was like, how can I help other people find that? Because jiu-jitsu and combat sports isn't for everybody. But
no.
I think that God gives us outlets in all things. So whether that's through speaking on podcasts, whether it's shooting is a big one. I think skydiving, if that's your thing. That's not my thing, but if it's your thing. So I was asking myself, how can I be the outlet for somebody else and that's struggling with mental health? And I didn't really have a good answer. And 3 years later, here I am. I'm 12 weeks post-op from a back surgery. I got injured in a fire. No, we had a big house fire. It was cold. It was like 15 degrees outside. Slipped on some ice, herniated my discs, couldn't walk. And I made it about 5 weeks, and I woke up one morning, couldn't walk, lost all bladder control. Got rushed to the hospital. They did an emergency surgery on me at St. Luke's downtown, decompression, laminectomy. And I was laying in that hospital bed, and I found myself again broken, asking God why. I found a compassion. I found what I love. I've fought my whole life to be a firefighter, and I'm finally doing it. And I'm finally becoming successful at it. And now here I'm laying in a hospital bed, can't walk. And so I prayed a lot. I was broken. I'm like, dude, I don't know if I'm ever going to be a firefighter again, because they were talking about fusion and multi-level things. And so
right.
I thought,
once they start operating on the back too, usually it's there's a lot of downhill things from there, right?
Slope. And it felt like 2 of my coping mechanisms were taken from me: combat sports and firefighting. That's what I had. So only thing I had left is to rely on the Lord, right? So I prayed a lot in those few days. I remember the surgeon came in, he's like, what's wrong with you? Because every time he'd walk in, I'd just tear up, like, this can't be happening. I wish I had a cool story to tell somebody, but I slipped on some ice, like, here I am. Right. And it broke me down, and I prayed a lot about it. And I'm like, and something came to me, not prophesizing or anything, but Like, we don't even have a fire chaplain where I'm at. Like, we have no peer-to-peer support system outside professional help. And firefighters and first responders are a lot like jiu-jitsu guys. You're not going to go seek help unless it's one of your buddies telling you you need help, and somebody that's equal to you, somebody that's been through the fire. It's just a mindset. And that's kind of where I came up with this Rescue Ready thing I'm trying to launch, is helping first responders prioritize fitness first, mental health, and mentality, and quit making excuses and push. And the best way I could help somebody do that is just promoting it, man, and just saying, hey, I've been there. I've been down and out. And but I also had to have credentials behind that. So I instantly, while I was still in the hospital, I started studying for fire chaplain stuff and peer-to-peer support and you name it. I took all kinds of online classes because I was stuck in a hospital. So any online class I could find, I started taking it. And I didn't know when I was going back to work. And I didn't know how it was going to be. And so I was still hurting spiritually. And the good Lord blessed me, and I feel better than I have in probably 15 years. As far as back and everything, I really needed that surgery a long time ago. I just put it off because the stigma of once you get your back worked on, you'll never be the same, which is very true. However, we forget that the Lord can change all things, right? Like, even as long as you're staying faithful. And I really believe that he did. And so, yeah, that was a lot, but
brother,
it catches you guys up on my story a little bit.
I want to say a couple things too. Just feedback for what you've shared so far. In my life, I have always considered the source of advice and who it's coming from when I receive it. And I've said it on this show before, and it's going to sound very judgmental or rough around the edges of me, but
right.
I don't take diet advice from unhealthy people.
Exactly.
I don't take financial advice from broke people, unless there's something that can be learned. And I've spent a lot of time in my life as broke and hurting and with a spirit of lack and all that stuff. So I don't want to discount the testimony of people who haven't made it, but I'm not going to get spiritual advice from people who aren't connected to Jesus. I'm just not, right? Like, and so with jiu-jitsu guys as well, and people who are genuinely focused on continuous improvement, which is absolutely one of my own immutable laws, one of my core values, and I can see that in you as well. And so we're always looking for credible sources of information. And like you said, I had all the credentials, right? You've lived through literally fires. Like one of the taglines for this podcast is ordinary people, extraordinary conversations. There is a whole lot of extraordinary in you and in your story, in God's mission for your life, and how you have been obedient to his calling. And so instant credibility with me. And the other thing too is your recovery journey. That was where I think you and I were following each other for the last year, and somehow I missed your injury. But I caught your recovery, and there was reels you were dropping of literally taking one step at a time, and your message was literally one step at a time, one foot in front of the other. You were basically documenting, and you still are, you're documenting your recovery journey. You posted a reel literally 2 days ago. What were those 2 pound, 5 pound weights?
5 pound weights, because my weight restriction is 10 pounds. So I found 5 pound weights.
Right.
And getting after it, trying to. And that's hard, man.
Dude, it's and that was where I think I said, as I was watching you document your recovery, and you do these rucks where you're just, it's like a video blog, right? You're talking and you're processing what's happened in the day or recently, right up to, talking about Children's Mercy and how they've been rock stars and heroes for your children, right? And the people there, and I've known many people that have worked there, and they've helped our kids in dicey situations as well. But that your recovery journey, and how you're a strong dude, obviously. Strong men, we are not used to being in weak places.
No.
But God calls us even in those times
Right.
to be faithful to, and there's always those moments like, God, I know you're more faithful than I am. You
Mhm.
believe in me when I don't believe in myself, right? Like you believe in my future. You have a plan, and it's hard to see, but to trust that he's always doing something in that. As I saw you doing that, that's where I was just like, I have to have this guy on the show. Like everybody I know needs to know about Rescue Ready. And I love how you have brought purpose out of pain. And to be honest, bro, like the traumatic things my wife and I have been through, we have reconciled that we may never get closure
Right.
in this life, right? Like I may never understand the why, but what I've had to come to get to is understanding that God does have a plan, that I'm a part of his story. He's not part of mine. I'm not inviting
Mhm.
him into my walk, right? Like I'm
Right.
supposed to
Yeah.
align with what he wants to do. And
Yes.
the way you've had these epiphanies on the way. And so let's talk about that. Rescue Ready, being a chaplain, like what was your journey? Let's start with your journey to become a fire chaplain and what you've learned and what you've been able to experience since stepping into that role. And then also we can unpack Rescue Ready and everything that's going on with that as well.
Awesome. So being a fire chaplain's a whole new thing. Like I said, we didn't have one. I'm in Atchison, Kansas. I'm a firefighter in Atchison, Kansas, right? So
Right.
we have a we call it a cowboy mentality. We're a smaller department. We take pride in what we do, and we're roughnecks, right? And it's not easy to come out of the
Yeah.
blue and be like, "Hey, chief, I want to be a fire chaplain." And they kind of looked at me like, because it's a volunteer position. I don't get paid for it. Um, and I'm like, no, I understand that. And we did have a policy wrote up for one, but now I'm summarizing. But basically, our SOG said, must be a person of faith. That's it. So I had to do all this research and all this digging, like, okay, what does this mean? Because we just haven't had one in years. And the last one, she tried, but she was also, she had a lot of challenges ahead of her with the culture. Um, So I was kind of like trying to ask all the old timers, like, hey, what are some of the things she did? I was trying to dig into it, just asking, and really didn't have a good answer. Right. So I'm like, here we go. God, I feel like you're calling me to do this. So you'll give me the answers. So I just started digging
Right.
and digging and digging, calling KCK, places I know that had fire chaplains, police chaplains, reaching out via email to different ones. Like, hey, what does this entail? I know that we need one. I know that there's a purpose behind it. But if I don't have an example to go off, it's really hard to start something like that from scratch. And
Yeah.
so I'm a fire chaplain, but I'm still a full time firefighter. So I'm balancing that. Right now, I'm on light duty because I can't pick up anything more than 10 pounds. And so it was a blessing in disguise, though, because it's given me a lot of time to focus on building this fire chaplaincy from the ground up, basically. Other than getting my cert in fire chaplain and peer to peer support, I don't have anything to go off. So it's given me a lot of time to contemplate, think, research different ideas to help guys. And basically, what my job entails is peer to peer support. If somebody's struggling, uh, after hour, whenever, I'll go to them, talk to them, at least offer help because you can't force anybody for help, but at least
Right.
I'm in their sin with them, right? And I'm down on their level, and there's what I tell people is there's physical fires that we have to pull people out of, and there's spiritual fires that we have to pull people out of, and both are my responsibility as a firefighter. And so that's kind of been my mission behind it and my drive. And also, I'll be in charge of line of duty death detail. So, like, if somebody passes away in a fire, I'll go with the chief to notify the family. If somebody
Yeah.
loses their kid in a fire or something, I'll report to the scene and help them work through those things, give them resources they need, whether it's financial, hook them up with the right people in that aspect, whether it's spiritual, I'll lead them to the right church because just because I go to a certain church, I don't want it's not for it. It doesn't fit everybody's shoe, right? So as long as I can
Right.
lead them in a spiritual direction, so having connections with the community through Red Cross, that's kind of what it details. And a lot of guys kept asking me when this was going on, I was like, Danny, you realize that you're not getting paid for that, right? I'm like, I'm getting paid. Like, I'm getting paid in my soul, right?
That's right, bro.
And it's
It
worth way more
transcends
than
money.
coin. Yeah,
Big
yeah.
time.
Like, I will do that any day of the
Yeah.
week over a paycheck, because a lot of guys seek. So a lot of firefighters specialize in something, whether it's vehicle extrication, whether it's, rope rescue, anything like that. They'll specialize in that. And our department's really good at it for a smaller department. We have our different guys for different needs, hazmat technicians, stuff like that.
Right.
And I kind of went whoop on my own little path that's never been done. So, and some days it's discouraging, because I'm like, man, it is so hard to. It'd be way cooler to be a rope rescue expert and like explain those things. But being a fire chaplain is different, and I have to take care of myself in that too, because I hear a lot of negative and a lot of bad things, man, come through my ears, and it's a new position, but then it's just beginning. So I have to remind myself as I go through that journey, I have to take care of myself too. And I think that goes with being a father. Anything you do in life, you have to take care of yourself so you can help somebody else. Because if you're not right and that foundation isn't right, the things you're putting out aren't healthy either. And I'm not ordained. I don't have interest in being ordained right now. So you don't have to be an ordained minister to be a fire chaplain. But one day maybe. But I'm trying to get my foundation rock solid before I could say, hey, I'm a leader of a church or, whatever it may be. I'm an ordained minister. Because I'm still working too, man. And I think that's what's great about that job or calling. I don't even like to call it a job because it's really not a job.
I hear you. Yeah.
Meeting people where they're at. Because I know with myself and my own mental health struggle and things, there's no way I would go to my boss and be like, hey, dude, I'm struggling. I have these thoughts. I have these negative indications about myself. I wouldn't do that because I wouldn't want them to look at me negatively. So I would fight those battles within. But a guy I'm rolling with, James Regina, I've had a lot of conversations with him.
Love that guy, man.
Yeah. And he's helped me in a lot of situations, and especially in the last few years when I was going through all that stuff with my son. And I felt way more comfortable opening up to him and being like, hey, brother, I'm struggling. But he's a black belt and could kill me in 3 seconds, but we're peers, right? So,
yeah.
So we're peers.
That's
so I feel
the beauty of
that
it, right?
Openness, right? And I feel like so somebody also asked me like, well, you're not a leader of a church. I'm like, yeah, but I'm a Christian and all of us are called to do that, right? You don't have to be a leader to help somebody, right? Sometimes your equal will help you more than somebody ahead of you. And
there's that age-old maxim of he qualifies the called, right? He doesn't necessarily call the qualified.
Right. David.
God has a way of picking somebody up without talking to anybody about it and just saying, yep, that's the fire chaplain right there. That's the guy who has the will. That's the guy who wants to do it. That's the guy who's listening to me, so he's going to do it. And he's qualified.
A challenging thing for me was I was really bad about caring what other people thought of me. Like, I've always had that image issue.
Talk about that, bro.
I've always had that image problem. That's why I started working out in the first place. Body dysmorphia, right? I felt little. I'm a little short guy, skinny. So I felt like I had to be the biggest, strongest, little short munchkin you've ever seen, right? So I always hated myself in my own skin. And I wouldn't be comfortable standing out in a crowd. Even when I first joined a church, like I felt like I was underneath all the believers at the church because I was struggling inside. And the reality is God puts us all on the same level. And I struggled with that for years. And that's kind of what this fire chaplain thing is forcing me to be comfortable in my own skin, because it's like I'm going against the grain on a lot of culture issues. And I don't care. I don't
Yeah.
care if um, somebody doesn't like it. Like, it doesn't matter to me. So it's forcing me to get comfortable in my own skin and um, not be reserved and try to fit in with everybody. Sometimes you have to do things that are uncomfortable to make you grow. And that's really been my goal for, here forward, not just tomorrow, not just from here forward. I want to do things that make me feel uncomfortable so I can grow to help somebody else. And whether that's, hey, people thinking, it's crazy for me to volunteer my free time to go talk to somebody that's struggling, then that's what that is. But yeah, I think that was a good explanation of fire chaplain. I could probably ramble forever.
Absolutely, and I love how you captured that you're the trailblazer, and I know there was this previous fire chaplain as well, which you have no intel on, right?
No.
Like as to what worked, what didn't work, why it just worked out in a different way. That
Yeah.
person chose a different path or whatever, but the fact that you are finding opportunities to network, your tribe is growing. When you have that title of chaplain as well, um, there's chaplains everywhere, dude. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
my
All
wife, my
kinds.
wife
Yeah.
is at a local Christian university, and
Mm,
there's a chaplain there that she's been able to connect with. I used to work at KU Health System. We
mm,
had chaplains there as well. And there's something about the person of peace that decides to step in the role of chaplain that
mm.
people will instantly let their guard down and share it all.
Right.
Like you are the person breaking case of emergency. That's you.
Yeah.
I'm breaking the glass, and Daniel's coming out of the glass, right?
Right.
Like breaking case of emergency. It's like the fact that you're a firefighter plus, right? You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you're gonna fight fires again. Everything that firefighters and first responders have been asked to do and increase in their skill set in the last 20 years. Like, remember
Mm,
when, there weren't back in the day, there wasn't a requirement for a lot of the certifications that you have to
no.
have now as a
Yes.
firefighter, because the world has changed and the spiritual battlefield has changed.
Mm,
And it's gotten, in some ways, there's nothing new under the sun, just like the word says. But in another way, it's like there's a lot of this stuff we have to figure out. And there's something about when you become a chaplain, you're part of this community, this brotherhood, this family of people that are trying to, you know, bring the kingdom into wherever they are. And
yes.
chaplains exist in all sorts of different places: the military, law enforcement,
Mm.
first responders, healthcare. I mean, I know I'm leaving out a lot,
Oh
right?
yeah. The
But
list is so
the
long.
fact that, and so you're part of a community, and there's
Mm,
there's groups, and there's probably additional certifications and things like that, like conferences that you get to go to because you're willing to do this, and
right.
so in a way it's like building the qualifications even further. But what an amazing calling and qualification to be a chaplain. Like, that is just incredible, man. And so, as far as Rescue Ready goes, because let's talk about that, because that was something that has been birthed from
Mm,
your personal experience, this passion for helping other men be ready for the mission,
mm.
particularly first responders, right? And so, what has the formation been looking like with that? I know that you've had events, you've done some things, and you have some things in the future. But
Mm.
what does the activity look like? And then, of course, we're going to tell people how they can get involved, of course. But let's talk about Rescue Ready.
Okay, so Rescue Ready, number one, 50% of first responders have suicidal indications, which is an unbelievable number. It's sad. The other 47% are have heart disease or end up with heart disease that causes a line of 47% of line of duty deaths are heart disease related. So, okay, here I am. I need to fight that fire. How can I do that? Right? Let's just say half of my brothers are dying from heart disease. The other half are dying from suicidal thoughts. So, first responders, and it's not just firefighters, it's police, EMS, all of us, almost all of us die from either heart disease or suicide. That's a problem. That's a major problem. And how can I help that? So it was when I was in the hospital, man, I was sitting there and I'm like, how can I stop that number? Cause I was just reading death scrolling cause I was in the hospital and I read those numbers and I'm like, oh man. And then I researched them to confirm it. And this is the truth. Cause I was like, there's no way it's that high. No, it is. And well, how can I do that? So I'm like, well, I'm a pretty healthy dude. I'll just start posting my life. And so diet things that I follow. I haven't always been good at it. My nickname used to be 30 cookies because I would just eat cookies like crazy. So
sounds like a band name or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
30 Cookies Davis.
Yeah.
We're called the Cookie Monsters. Or no, sorry. I had
No,
to.
absolutely. That's and because I was bad about it. Because when you're hitting these high stress environments, man, and you're up all night, your cortisol levels are through the roof. You're stressed about your family life. You have to have some kind of outlet. And if it's not alcohol, it's gonna be sugar or something.
Right.
And unless it's positive. And I'm like, well, how can I bring the positivity to my brothers and sisters? And I started asking around like people, I'm not going to call them out, but people I know that weren't working out or doing anything. And those like, hey, what is holding you back from getting yourself together? What's the holdup? And sometimes it's a hard conversation because people don't like to hear questions like that. When you question them, right? It's uncomfortable. I don't like it when somebody questions what I do. It's uncomfortable. It brings up a lot of uncomfortable things. If somebody would have asked me why my nickname is 30 Cookies, I probably would have started getting uncomfortable and told them I still had a six pack. It didn't matter. So I started having these uncomfortable conversations with people, and it kept coming up as I don't have enough money for the gym. I don't have enough time for the gym. I don't, and a lot of them are excuses. Some of them are valid. And I'm like, well, how can I help one of those things? Can't help your time. I can't manage your time for you because a lot of people aren't willing to get up at 4:30 in the morning to exercise. I can't hold your hand through that. But what I can do is offer free workouts. So group workouts. I don't have a lot, but I have exercise bands, medicine balls. We can go to the park and run.
You have experience as a personal trainer too.
Yes.
You've been a personal trainer. Add that to the list. Forgotten titles in my introduction.
So there's ways you can exercise for free anywhere. And I'm like, why don't I
call those prison workouts.
Hey, they work, right? Those guys
anything you
huge.
can do in an 8x8 square. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I could do that for free once a week, offering people in my area, across the Kansas City area. I wouldn't mind like a Saturday afternoon going to another location and doing a group workout if we're going to do a ruck or things like that, so we can all be together and build each other up. Because one of my personal pet peeves, and it's not like I'm angry with the person, but I feel for them when you're in the back of an ambulance or you're in a fire and you don't know who you're supposed to treat, the patient or the responder next to you, because they're overweight, they're struggling, and it's a real problem. And I feel that I can help that, because if it takes one voice, if I save one person from being obese, dying of heart disease, then I did my job. And if it's just one guy that comes to these workouts, I did something. Because too many people get in that comfortability zone. It's just too hard to make a difference. It's just too overwhelming. Numbers like 47% die of heart disease. Those aren't your healthy guys. Sometimes it is because we're exposed to heat and things like that, but it's a very small number that actually die from the fire itself. It's the fires they fight internally. And if I can save one dude from that, or female, I'm all for it, dude. Like, let's go all in on this. Let's push. And it also keeps me safe when I'm in the field, because I know somebody next to me is not going to go down from being obese or having some kind of underlying health condition that nobody knew about because they were too afraid to talk about it. And it's okay, man. It's okay to not be at peak physical health. It's dude, and jiu-jitsu, there are some guys that you would never guess that are murderers, right? You
Yeah.
got your computer nerds to your overweight guys that could just go in there and tear your head off. And that's
Yeah,
okay.
10th Planet has been a great example of that too. I think that was the rise of the computer nerd assassin
Yeah.
happened through, initiatives like 10th Planet too. There's a lot
Yeah.
of those folks that practice all over the world. But yes, absolutely.
It's the guys that you would never expect, right? That you would think
Absolutely.
that be like, oh, I could tear that guy up in a bar fight. And no, that guy's an assassin undercover. And
Yeah, he grabs your wrist and it's over.
yeah, one wrist lock and you're done.
Pretty much, yeah.
So, and that's been my mission, man. And it's starting. Like I'm still at the very beginning stages. In September, I'm promoting a stair climb. So it's climb for the fallen, roll for the living. So at the Atchison Fire Department, I do a stair climb. I've had it for like the last 3 years, but I have a hard time getting people to attend because they hear the amount of floors we do. We do the 110 stories for the fallen firefighters on 9/11, and they're like, "I'm not doing that." But you don't have to. Like it's more about the support. There's a couple of us that do it. Hopefully, my back is healed up enough to where I can do it this year. I had some guys from 10th Planet come down and do it with me last year in full gear. We actually had enough gear for them, so they got to put the SCBA on, helmet, everything. They did the full climb with me. I puked.
Wow.
So this year we're going to push it a little harder though. So we're the kids wrestling club here in town. The owner of it, Curtis, donated all this money to the kids wrestling club, and above his body shop is a beautiful gym, and it's just for the kids wrestling club and other guys that do jiu-jitsu in town here in Atchison. We don't have a local gym, so he lets us use it whenever we want. And I went to Curtis. I'm like, hey, I got this idea this year. I want to do the stair climb, and then right after I want to go over there and roll. He's like, you're nuts. Nobody's going to do that. And I'm like, oh yeah. Oh yeah, people will. And so we're going to do a silent auction and free food, and the local Mexican restaurant La Maria's here in town is going to supply food and fellowship. So I really hope that I can get some people to that. And that's going to be like the kickoff of Rescue Ready. So I can be like, hey, this is what we're about. Let's come together as a community to battle these numbers that are unbelievable. And it's not just in the first responder community. It's everywhere. And I think that that's why jiu-jitsu and combat sports help people so much. My daughter, Lily, the one with the heart condition, she's a gray belt. She trains every week. And it's helped her grow so much and become so strong. And I watch those kids grow week after week. And if it's helping those kids grow, it's helping us grow. We might not realize it. And especially being a lower belt, like it's frustrating. It's hard.
Oh yeah.
There's been times where I was talking to Lily, but really I was talking to myself because she'd get frustrated because hey, if you're in a gym with a good culture, they're not handing out anything, right? You have to earn it.
Right.
And we live in a society now
Absolutely.
that everything is given to kids that when they have to be uncomfortable to earn something, it just doesn't line up with the society that they live in anymore. And us
right.
too. I feel like it's even our generation is the same way, where our parents were kind of still on the curve of earning things, and we're kind of like in the cusp where half of us aren't used to it and the other half are, So it kind of goes back and forth of the culture of society. Because we're the ones teaching our kids
Yeah.
that they can have things for free and they don't have to earn stuff. So I see them grow through that, man. And I have to earn it. So I'm telling her like, well, Lily, this is hard. If it was easy, the whole world would do it. But really, I'm talking to myself, but I'm talking to her in the process. Sorry,
Absolutely. Yeah. My daughter's just recently started, and I was talking to my 9-year-old, and she goes, do you think I'll win? And I said, you know what, sweetie, after doing this for a year and a half, I don't know that there's winning outside of
There's not.
going to compete at events and you get a medal, and it was like, it costs 45 cents to manufacture somewhere else, right? And it's just, and Gabriel's been really good about the belt. He quotes Hoist Gracie. I think it's like the belt covers 2 inches of your butt, you got to cover the rest. But I've had that conversation with them, and I've come home from rolls and they'll ask me, how did it go, and I say, you know what, I got my butt kicked today, and I'm going to be reflecting on what happened in practice all day.
Yeah.
You know, I pick it because I'm bad at it. I'm really bad at it. I'm not used
Yeah,
to
me
being
too.
bad at
Yeah.
things, right? Like
Yeah.
straight A kid, all that stuff. Right, bro? Like, so to lean
Yeah.
into something that I suck at, there's that line, can't remember who made it popular, but be brave enough to suck at something new, you
Yeah.
know? There's a refining process that comes from that. Very curious too, like how did that journey go with having her get into jiu-jitsu? Was that something that she wanted to do? Was that something that you encouraged her to do, to like go try it? Because that's something I've talked to a lot of parents and they're like, well, you know, they don't know how to approach the subject, you know,
Yeah.
and they don't know how to like find that spot.
Well, it started, I believe, by me setting the example, and that's where I went. So of course she looks up
Yeah.
to me, you know. So she was like, "Well, I was when she turned of age." So our pup, we call it pups class. It starts at first grade, I believe. So once she turned of age, she's like, "Dad, can I go to the gym?" And I started taking her to open mats and stuff, and she would see what was going on in there. And Lily was really quiet and reserved in public, right? She's really quiet and reserved in public.
I like that,
But
in public. Yeah.
yeah, at home she's a different creature. But she was traumatized so much by all the medical stuff she went through that in a group setting in school, anything, she just felt like she couldn't talk. She had to be quiet. She wanted to disappear. Very reserved, shy little girl. And she asked me to go to jiu-jitsu, and I was like, absolutely. And I had texted Coach Jeremy, and I, of course, shout out to Coach Jeremy, by the way, because it's not an easy decision.
Yeah, dude.
When you have a father text you and be like, hey, there's this list of medical stuff wrong with my daughter. Can she still come to class? You know, and her stuff is so rare that it's like I have a hard time understanding it, and I'm well educated in her heart, right? So I've been through surgical appointments and all these things, and I have a hard time grasping the miracles she lives every day. But I wouldn't have felt right if I just put her in there and then something happened and then coach blames himself forever, you know? So I wanted to disclose a lot of information, be like, hey, I think that this is what Lily needs to build her stronger. And I'm asking you if you would allow this to happen. And he did. He was like, absolutely. He doesn't treat her any different. So if she's doing something wrong or she's, doing a technique wrong, he corrects her just like anybody else. And I love that. And she needs that. I feel like when you tell your kid there's something wrong with them, she knows, like she's educated that her heart's different, but she's not treated any different. She's not treated any different than my boys. And my boys are rough, right? They're knuckleheads, but I treat her the same. And Coach Jeremy just gets right in there with her. And she wrestles boys, she gets bruises all over her because her oxygenated blood isn't as good as ours. And she takes aspirin daily and blood thinners. So she looks like she's been through a battle every day, but she gets in there and she goes 150% every day. And I believe that is what's kept her so strong through everything. And if you don't mind, I'll share a quick story with you, brother. And if I tear up, I apologize.
Absolutely. You
So-
already got me, man. I've been on the verge and getting teary-eyed through the whole thing. Nothing to apologize for. Go ahead, brother.
A few weeks ago, we had Lily got sick, and certain illnesses really bother her because she just has low oxygen count and things like that. So she got a cold, and colds are really bad. She can handle COVID like no other, dude. Like not even be sick running around. But certain colds, it's called the rhinovirus, really bother her. And she started de-statin.
Oh yeah.
And she was really, really ill. And I was really worried about her because I could tell. We've known her. We know when she's doing good and when she's not. So I rushed her down to Children's. She wasn't doing too well. And they took a CT and they found something in her heart that was kind of concerning. They thought it was maybe a blood clot, but it was a pulmonologist that looked at it. And Lily's had the same cardiologist since day one. That's a whole nother story, but her cardiologist is one of the best men I've ever met in my life. But the pulmonologist was like, "Hey, Dad, we think we found a blood clot in her aorta. You know, just let you know." And she wasn't doing well. And I reached out to Coach Jeremy, like, "Hey, man, Lily's not doing good." And he was really supportive through the whole thing. But they needed to give Lily IV medication, and Lily's traumatized of nurses, doctors, IVs, because she's lived through it, dude. And the pain, like her last heart surgery, she was 4, so she still remembers it subconsciously, I feel like.
Gosh.
And it was a big one. It was a big open heart surgery. I had to break her open, and she was in a lot of pain for a long time. And so she's traumatized and she's shaking, and I had to hold her down so they could get the IV to give her the dye medication so they could get better imaging of what they thought they found.
Right.
And
Right.
Lily started praying, and she was like, God, please take this from me. Please take my pain away. Please take my pain away. And she said, let my faith be bigger than my fear. And that's not something I taught her, brother. Like, that's something that she picked up on her own. And she was just screaming this at the top of her lungs. And I'm holding her, and I broke down, brother. I couldn't do it no more. She even asked God to let her die the way she is. And me and this nurse looked at each other, and we locked eyes, and she went calm. Her heart rate went from like 220 because she was just screaming at the top of her lungs like she was being murdered. And she said, God, I need you to take this burden from me. And in her own words, in a 7-year-old's words, and
Yeah.
or 8, sorry. And the whole room got still, and Lily got calm, and they got the IV. They gave her a medication. She jumped in the CT machine by herself and went in there because God gave her calmness, right? I know it. That there is no other, all the traumatic stuff I've been through, all the things I've seen as a firefighter, all the things I've seen as a dad. That was the realest moment because she was being real with God, with Christ. She said, I just want this to go away. Please take this from me. And he took it. And I know he did. And me and that nurse, I don't know what her background was or what religion she was. It's just a conversation you don't have. But we locked eyes, and we knew it was real. And me and my wife didn't say a word to each other all the way home. And we just looked like we couldn't even talk about it. It took me weeks to talk about it because it was one of those weird moments. And that's Lily's story. So I'm proud of her, but it's building my story. And the reality is there's so many kids out there that people hold them back from their true potential. And I told myself as a father, even though she's terminally ill, I will not hold her back from her true potential. And like her life expectancy still, brother, is only puberty. And that's hard as a father, is you cherish all the moments, and doctors are wrong every day, right? Obviously they're wrong every day.
All the time. All the time. Thank God.
Yeah.
I know it sounds weird to say thank God, but yeah, I've had to get second, third, fourth, and fifth opinions in my life, man. And I'm glad for them. Yeah.
And so I just tell myself that all the time. But I see her growing, right? And I'm like, please stop. Right? Because we all do that with all our kids, not just her. Every kid we have, we're like, please stop growing.
Right.
But it hits home, and then she does these things like jiu-jitsu, and she just makes these remarkable feats. And during that hospital stay, she actually was bragging to all the nurses that came in, doctors or whoever, that she was a gray belt and she could armbar them if they would get on the ground. So she's proud of that. But that's what I was getting at with that story is it's easy to be told by a doctor to isolate your kid and don't let them be who they really are. I remember both of my kids that have special needs, Danniel and Lily, they said, don't take them to Walmart. Don't take them outside. You can't have them in the pollen, can't let them play in the grass. I'm telling you from experience, let those kids go out there, play in the grass, and be kids while they're kids. Because you isolate them in a home, then you're causing mental problems, mental disabilities, things like that. Their immune system is weak. you as a parent become weak because you're not out there enjoying
Yeah.
activities, enjoying their childhood with them while they're a child. Cherish those little moments. Even if an expert is telling you, don't take them to Walmart, don't let them play in the grass, mud will kill them, right? It's not true.
Yeah.
It's only as true as you make it. Now, if they're 13 years old and never been outside, yeah, if they go outside and play in the mud, they might get sick. Expose them to life. Let them
Right.
have a quality of life. They're not prisoners. They're children. Let them be children no matter what the outcome is. That's the way God designed. Let them grow. And that's a hard reality to face because you want to protect them, but at the end of the day, you still have to let them be them. And I still
Yeah,
face the
brother.
struggle every day.
There's this concept too, that I thankfully heard from married couples who had kids that were further along than Stephanie and I. And we had, our 9-10 years of infertility where we were
Mhm.
trying to adopt and all that. So by the time we had kids, like we had a lot of our perspective had adapted, right? But there's this concept that they're like, we're their earthly parents, but
Mhm.
ultimately they're God's kids,
Right.
right? And this idea that, my wife and I, we've talked about it. We're like, we talked about the girls and, these what if scenarios, like, well, what if they choose to do this for a profession or whatever? And
Mhm.
I've constantly had to check in with myself and say, am I equipping them to face the world knowing that God loves
Right.
them above all and it's his
Mhm.
opinion that matters? Am I also equipping them to be critical thinkers, because that's going to be something, being sent out like sheep among wolves, right?
Mhm.
Like, but this idea that at some point I am going to have to let go of them, right? And
Mhm.
in many ways, I have to let go of them. To your point, you're talking about like free range parenting, right? Like,
Yeah.
man, let them go out there, let them get dirty, let the street lights come on, and just let them be down the block with the bikes, like when we were growing up, right? Like
Yeah.
we had
Absolutely.
all the ability to do
Learning
these things. We
moments.
didn't really have
Yeah.
these devices. And yeah, they're learning moments, they're rites of passage. Like,
Mhm.
that's the other thing that's kind of dead in our society. That's why I think we've got a lot of the ills in our society, is because young men and women, they don't, there's no real clear rite of passage, right? Like,
No.
John Eldridge talks about that. Like, every boy needs to spend time as the beloved son, and then they need to go
Mhm.
through their cowboy phase, and they got to be a
Yeah.
warrior, and then there's the king and the sage. I think he breaks it out in Wild at Heart.
Mhm.
Um, but like, there's rites of passage, and I'm just so inspired by you and your wife, your parenting style, man, about what you said about Lily, of like, I'm not going to hold her back from her true potential.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like that's something every parent needs to hear right now, because the temptation is to control as much as we can, because we know we're going to lose control one day.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, we don't really have control.
Yeah. And
Control is
it's
kind of an
easier to
illusion
do now with
in some
our
contexts.
devices where we can track them. We can,
Yeah.
control everything they do. And it's like, I don't know if my parents knew where I was at half the time. When the sun came up, I was outside. And like you said, when the street lights came on, I was back inside, and they would hear if I did something bad,
Yeah.
and, they would know.
Yeah.
You don't have to track somebody's iPhone to know what they're doing at all times, because it robs them from growing, and then they become an adult. And here they are, an 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid going into the workforce, living on their own, and they don't have mom tracking them, or they do, and you're still trying to do it when they're trying to grow and be an adult. And then reality kicks in, the struggles like we've faced in life, and they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know, like, oh, this is what it feels like to feel pain, because they've been sheltered their whole life. And my wife has been a saint throughout our whole journey. She supports the fact that I train several times a week, and she supports me getting myself right so I can be the pillar of the family. And if it wasn't for her being supportive in that, there is no way I could do what I do. Training several times a week, being at work for 24 hours at a time, coming home for 24 hours at a time. Um, she's got 5 kids. 2 of them need a little extra care, especially my son with the trach Daniel. It takes a lot of care to care for him. Um, So she's an all-star. And of course, we fight, we argue just like any other married couple. We've actually been together since we were 14. So we've had a long marriage.
Wow.
So
That's
not so
beautiful.
happy, not, and it hasn't been a solid since we were 14, but we got back together because that was our calling. And I feel like God placed us in each other's lives because he knew that we were going to face all these challenges. And um, I just encourage people as they're married in a long-term marriage, as when you're hit with these struggles of life or thorns, I call them the thorns of life, understand that it's not your spouse's fault. You're going to take it out on your spouse. You might not mean to, but that is the person that God has placed closest in your life. And you're going to take things out on them, just like we get angry at God, right? We know God is the center of our life, but our sinful nature curses him sometimes. And I feel like you have to focus and tell yourself, like, hey, I am taking this out on my spouse because I'm hurting so much inside. And, I just heard at a wedding the other day, it's kind of cliche, but marriage is not 50-50. Whoever said that, yeah, it's ideally 50-50, but there's some days it's 90-10. There's some days it's 80-40, but you have to be willing to make up the extra percent. And that we all go through those seasons where we're not 100%. And that's where my wife has shined so much, because I have struggled so much and I haven't been that 100% I needed to be for her. And she has given
Right.
extra because she knows I'm struggling. She sees that the mental crisis that I go through, and she puts forth effort to do that. And I do it with her. It took me a lot longer to realize what I was doing than it did her, but sometimes women are smarter than men, I think, in that aspect.
Oh
But
yeah.
emotionally, I
Yeah,
was
for sure,
reserved, and
man.
um, emotionally, I was really reserved. And she's seen that I was struggling, and she pushed me to do MMA. She pushed me to do jiu-jitsu. She pushed me to go on these walks and things like that, because she knew I needed to heal so I could be the pillar of the family. If that pillar's not strong, nobody in the family is strong. And it took me a long
Yeah.
time to realize that, because I always thought this was wrong. Even before your children, you got to love God. And that's a hard thing to
Yep.
it's a
Right.
hard thing to grasp, because your children are like your prized possessions. But you have to put God first, then your wife,
Yep.
and then your children. And a lot of us get it backwards. We're worshiping our children, not
That's right.
our God. And our children will only benefit from us worshiping him first. When we put
Yeah.
our kids as gods, they believe they're gods. And that's when a lot of those behaviors, because they're used to their parents worshiping them, right? But if they see you worshiping our God and your
Yeah.
wife, that's their new standard. You're setting a new standard for your children.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing when you can really do it. Some days I'm not so good at it, but that's me being honest, right?
Dude, I could not agree with you more, Daniel. Dude, this conversation has been so, we just went there right away, right? Like we didn't have uh any pleasantries, any of the so tell me about yourself, anything like that. This is this is why I wanted this new format on this show, and this is why I wanted to break away from focusing on business and
Mm,
all that kind of stuff. It was exactly for conversations such as these, man. And I'm so honored to know you, have you on the show. Um, I know. Here's what we'll do too. I think maybe after the ruck and roll here, I'll riff with you live here right now. After
mm.
the ruck and roll, do you want to come on the show again, or maybe we could have you on just before it? We're gonna have you on again, dude. I wanna make you a regular if that's okay. but
Absolutely.
um,
There's a lot more
because
to
there's
that
so
I
much
could have
more to
touched on.
unpack,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah. Yeah. So after this
Absolutely,
Sarah
dude.
climb,
And
I would
and
love to come
my
back on and go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, and that's what the call to action too for everybody listening. If you've been inspired by this, which I don't know how you couldn't be inspired, um, we're gonna have all of Daniel's socials tagged in the show notes here. Obviously, we're posting this on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, uh, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. There's going to be ways to engage, follow, definitely follow Rescue Ready. Daniel, did you want me to tag your personal Instagram as well?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, brother, I'd really appreciate it. I've really enjoyed our
Okay.
conversation. I
Yeah.
might even
I'll
reflect on a lot of it, because I can even learn from some of the things that we talked about and some of the words of wisdom you shared with me. And it was a really heartfelt
absolutely, man.
thing. So I'm
Yeah.
really surprised. So it's my
On
first
that
podcast, and
subject. Yeah. And I appreciate you coming on too, man. And on that sort of words of wisdom or anything else, how do you want to sign us out, man? Is there anything that you wanted to make sure you said before we end this episode?
I would just want to ask people to have that resilient mindset. And when life gets hard, reach out to somebody. It's okay not to be okay. And we have to stay rescue ready and we have to be ready for the next fight. So reach out to somebody. It's okay. It's not okay to not say anything. So if you're struggling with mental health, you're struggling with your health, if you need help, please reach out to somebody. The only way you can get help is either crying out to God or reaching out to your brother or sister. So that's what I just want to leave on that note, man. If you're listening to this and you're struggling, you have two guys that do combat sports and are telling you you're not weak for reaching out for help. And I really believe that. And that's my
That's right.
mission in life, man, is to help these people that are too afraid to say something. Don't be afraid.
Brother, I appreciate you. We'll be praying for more workers to come your way, man. I think this is a beautiful calling initiative, and it's going to be awesome having you on again in a couple months, man.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Appreciate you, Daniel. All right, everybody. You know what to do. We'll see you next time.